Da da da! What's my good cheer? Welcome, everybody. Let's give YouTube a couple of minutes to get those notifications out. In the meantime, if you've never met me before, I'm Cindy. I explore the inside and the outside. Today was an inside day. An inside day and an inside day. I got 5 loads of laundry done. I got all my camping gear cleaned and nicely packed away. My house is back to normal. Considering when I got home, my living room was full of gear, right? So I'm happy that I applied myself. I got it done. And you guys, I'm back on my routine. Pop in, say hi. Again, if you've never met me before, hi, I'm Cindy. I explore the inside and the outside. Hello, Tammy. How are you doing tonight? I've got both my phones here. One of my phones, I decided I was leaving a couple of things for tomorrow. I was going to clean out my shower bag. I have a big case that I take to the shower when I go to provincial parks and stuff. And it was a mess. So I decided, I was going to get that out of the way tonight too. I was just going to leave my gear bag, which is all my camera gear and stuff, all my wires and stuff. And I even cleaned that up and I put that away. But when I was cleaning it up, I went, oh my goodness, this phone is off. And I know I've got a lot of content from this past weekend here. So if I'm going to get to work in getting a video together for Sunday night, and if you guys want to come in, I think I'm going to do a premiere this Sunday night, and I'll just join everybody in the comments in the conversation, and that's what we'll do. But I'll have to apply myself if I'm going to do that, and that'll take some editing. And if you guys know, I'm not a big fan of editing. I do it because I have to, because nobody else is going to do it for me. And so it's my responsibility in this moment to get that job done. If any one of you guys want to be an editor, the wage is cheap, cheap, cheap. But you're more than welcome to take over that job because it's, like I said, not my favorite thing to do. But I do it because I am a YouTube creator. And if I do not get it done, nobody's going to do it for me. And I take responsibility and accountability to make sure that I have these uploads edited and ready to go. But like I said, it may be a premiere. It may be. I said I was going to take my time in getting that video together. We'll see. Sunday night, if you see that word premiere on my channel, you know I'm uploading my past weekend, which was an absolute blast, not just for me, but for everybody who showed up and participated. It was an absolute blast. And it was very needed. You know, this past year, I really have been applying myself in the lessons and sitting in on conversations, in lectures and with different thought leadership, and really stretching myself in some of those categories that I knew were important to what I was doing and exploring the inside and the outside. That in exploring the inside, I wanted to share and help out through my own experiences. But you have to have that true experience, that scientific and medical kind of background attached to what you're doing. You just can't go out there and fly by the seat of your pants and throw things at the wall to see what sticks, right? And yes, no better way to learn to resolve than to hang out with somebody who has overcome and resolved themselves. But there are people who are experts in the categories that they teach in. I was actually one of my favorite ladies. She works with avoidance, right? And the topic has been applying itself in my feed, oh, for months now. And so I have been delving into it, but not having those experiences myself with avoidance, right? Introverts, yes, I'm one myself. I'm an extroverted introvert. Um, so I understand and get it. But avoidance are a whole different type of being. Very interesting and curious type of being. And a being that I would actually look at as somebody who's an introvert because of their experiences that they've had in their life, right? They've had experiences. If you come from a dynamic family, right? And lots of us do, that we have these experiences that make us standoffish and not want to involve ourselves in a social aspect. But lots of times in that adapt and conquer, sometimes just in the fact that so much change comes into our lives that we have to ride those waves. And like I said, I am an introverted extrovert. I do both. Birth. I do both, right? And I am fairly comfortable in both, but in preference, and then especially in the past 10 years in applying myself, I've really come to appreciate that time for myself. So I had this assumption that avoidance were introverts, and I never even took into consideration that they might be in their own category. So to get back what I was saying, there is a lady that I do follow, and she works specifically. She doesn't expand outside of her specific category, which are avoidance, right? And there are different categories in avoidance too, right? And so I was sitting in a lesson today, and she was so smart, and she came up with an idea that could be used not just for avoidance, right? But for anybody who is easily triggered in their life. And I was sat and I was mesmerized by the the content and the lesson that she was bringing forward. And sometimes you have to take it in and understand that none of us have all the answers. None of us do. And it's to each one of us to expand and to search out and ask Gemini and Chat GPT these questions, right? Because they will lead you in to the experts in those fields. Never get so comfortable in what you do that you think that you're an expert. You know, it's wonderful that we can rely in our own experiences, and not so wonderful because a lot of those experiences are not comfortable. We would much have preferred not to have them. But because we did have them, because we did survive them, because we adapted and conquered and rode those waves, in our own token, we did become a bit of an expert in those categories. But not the be all to end all, right? Not somebody that can say that they have all the answers. Like I said, up until a few months ago, I would have categorized right? The avoidance in the same category as the introverts. I would, because they have a lot of similarities, right? But in the other aspects, they're very, very, very different. And so that polymath brain of mine, I want to know. I want to feel out. I'm curious, right? It's like an hors d'oeuvre platter out there in the world, and we all get to pick and choose from that hors d'oeuvre platter as to what we want to be experts in, right? And that's the truth. And that's why I always say, you guys, that we have our work, we have our hobbies, right? And we should have our interests, because those interests could be the door in to something in the future, right? Because in this moment, you're not an expert, it's just an interest, right? But at some point, if you're interested and you delve in, you can be somebody who could pass information on to others because, right, you are so interested in what you do that you've become a little bit of expert in that through your own experience and in applying yourself, but also understand that even in your interest, because it's not your work, right? It's not what you apply yourself hard in, that you'll never have all the answers in it, right? But that doesn't mean that you can't share what you know. Share it, not push it on people, right? That's a little bit narcissistic in that idea because you're just showing off, right? At that point, how much you know, but you have to recognize you don't have all the answers. That's your interest. That's something for the future. That's something that you do when you get a little bit too punch drunk with the work, right? That you've got to escape a little bit. And if you can't escape into a hobby, you can apply yourself in your interests and excel a little bit better in that one. Okay, you guys, beginning of my live, I'm supposed to be into my card already. But that's okay. I'm not an hour in, right? I hope everybody is having a great night tonight. I'm kind of pleased with myself that I am caught up and things are cleaned and packed and put away, right? And that's my hobby, but it's also part of my work. And it's wonderful, right? Because you're supposed to love what you do, right? And I love what I do. Okay, you guys, here we go. If you've never hung out with me before, this is a deck that I put together. There are 54 powerful words. And it's the first perspective, first thought that I run with when I pull the card out. Sometimes it leads off in other directions. Sometimes it's an experience. Sometimes it's a conversation or interaction that I had. Sometimes it's in a relationship. I try really hard not to make it a part of somebody else's experience because that's somebody else's story. But if it's relevant in my experience, also, right, it's fair game as far as I'm concerned. But the idea, it's the first thought that comes to my mind, and we run with it. Okay? We try and stay on it as long as we can. Okay, you guys. I hope everybody's having a great week. We're off to a good start, and I am feeling good. We're going to take this card because it was kind of sticking out there, but there's two cards there, so we're going to take the back one. Let's grab it. Ooh, here's a great card. I was actually on this topic a little bit today. I've done this many, many times, you guys. Pivot is simply trying again differently. So, this is change, you guys, right? Pivot is a complete change. It's a 180, it's a 360 in our life. It's stopping what we're doing, understanding it's not getting us anywhere. It's not a quit. It's not, I can't take this anymore. It's too hard. I quit. It's not one of those. It's understanding that it's not going to get you where you're supposed to be, where you want to be in life. And when that happens, you have to make a choice and you have to take immediate action in that. A pivot is immediate, right? Now, I'm a big fan of baby steps, right? I've been at this for decades and decades. I'm going to be 65 years old this year. And so there have been lots of pivots in my life. I am grateful that those pivots have come down to a little bit of a slowdown because I've come to appreciate now my three, my work, my hobbies, and my interests, right? These are the things that I plan. I'm determined to move forward because I love what I'm doing. Lots of times we find ourselves in situations in our life of not our choosing, right? But change happens, and lots of times because we're on the couch with the remote control, right? The house burns down because you left a pot of macaroni on the stove, you're not paying attention, and now you find yourself unexpectedly, unwantingly in a situation where you have to fly by the seat of your pants and find yourself a new roof over your head, a new roof over your family's head, resources in order to be able to do that, vet bills, because you just were not paying attention to what you were doing. So life kicked you in the butt, right? Life came at you when, if you were applying yourself in something that you loved, right? If you were in the interests that you loved, if you paid attention to that pot of craft dinner that you so love, that house wouldn't have burnt down. Now, that's not a great analogy, but that's the first thing that came to my mind, right? And that's definitely a pivot. That's a 360 for sure, right? But I've had so many of those pivots in my life. Growing up, I went to 11 different elementary schools. That's pretty bad, right? That's two schools a year. That truly messed me up. I didn't have much choice in that. That's where I learned the adapt, the conquer, the ride the waves, to do the very best that I could just to manage to get through it. And then just carried on throughout my entire life, being that person with the couch and the remote control, because I've come to detest change in my life, right? Because change was so painful. But because I wasn't moving, because I didn't want to move, right? I didn't want to create that havoc in my life, that change in my life, that life found me. And that's the truth. Those are the 360s. Those are the yanks. And sometimes you find yourself in a 360 right at the beginning again, right? Starting all over from scratch. That's a definite pivot. Sometimes it's a 180 where you're all comfy right here. Life is good. And then all of a sudden, you're at a 180, which is the direct opposite from where you were a moment ago. That is also a pivot because I wasn't a big fan of change, because of my dynamic upbringing, because of all those experiences. I was looking for the stall. I was looking to be a rock or a boulder without making any movement at all because it was too painful emotionally, mentally, physically. And there are lots of people out in the world like that, like me, in those experiences. And that's what stops us from growing. That's what makes it so that we work at McDonald's for no offense to McDonald's. We work at McDonald's for 6 months and then we find ourselves at 7-Eleven, and then we're working at the gas station for 6 months because we just can't hold those jobs anymore, right? Because we're so done. That's all I can say about that. We're just done with change. Right? What you think, right? I like my job. I'm staying here forever because it puts the roof over my head, right? But was it fun? Some aspects, maybe, because working in hospitality and working in customer service, I liked people because I was an extrovert in that. But when I woke up to some of these ideas, right? And some of these lessons from some of these great thought leadership out there in the world that says you got to be doing what you love. Your job should be something that you love, something that adds to your life and just doesn't take from your life, and just not something to put the roof over your head. And it just, right? It led me to being a YouTube creator. And then it led me because your purpose comes from your pain. And I wanted to understand how I got so messed up in my life, why I had so many jobs after my marriage fell apart. I really wanted to understand emotions. And when I delved in, I loved it, right? And because your purpose comes from your pain, I thought maybe this could be my work. Maybe this could put the roof over my head. But I loved it so much it was almost like an interest. It was almost like a hobby. But I knew that unless I applied myself, right, and just not through my own experiences, but by the experiences of people who did have an opportunity to go to university and get their degrees, who were the experts in their field, that it gave me a chance to do this in baby steps, right? I've been at this for a long time now, over a decade for sure. Maybe a couple of years of those were without my understanding of what was going on. But once I understood, right, I was like a pit bull with a piece of raw meat in my mouth. But I appreciated my capacity. And I got to appreciate that the lessons that came on board allowed me to make that change myself in little bits and bites, right? Little baby steps. And you guys know I'm big on baby steps. And I made those 45-degree turns. And those 45-degree turns all added up were 360s, were pivots, but they were pivots done in a way that I was able to absorb them. I was able to digest them because I do appreciate, and I fully recognize that I didn't understand my emotions, right? I really didn't. And a lot of these triggers in my life and a lot of these setbacks in my life were setbacks caused by not understanding and appreciating where they came from, right? And not only that, it led me to understand how I was coping with those triggers. And so I was able to do small spoonfuls and little 45-degree turns and baby steps and be able to do it at a pace that I would say in the past 6 years, I have not had any crazy town pivots, right? Now remember, the pivots are the Yanks, man. They're the 180s and the 360s in our life that turn our lives into crazy down and upside down. Most important word I have to say in my entire deck: change is always present. And if we don't make that change ourselves in our lives, and we know, right? We know we're just comfy. We love the couch and the remote control. We're terrified, right? We're not physically, emotionally, or mentally fit and think that we can't do it. We're our worst instigators, and I was my own worst instigators. But if I can do it, I swear, like if I can do it, anybody can do it. Anybody can. It's just about making a choice and putting that action towards it. Yes, in the beginning, right? It's saying, this isn't working for me, right? What would I love to do? And make yourself a list. And that's an action. Make yourself that list of things that you would love to do, and then eliminate the things that you know. Like if you're 70 years old and you want to be in the NHL, right? You know that's not going to happen. But what can you do? Can you be a broadcaster, right? Can you be the guy that could drive around on the ice in the Zamboni, right? Can you be a ref? Like there are still things out there that you can apply yourself. Like your season has not passed you by. If it is your passion, right? Then you move in that direction. And it doesn't mean, right? Just do the baby steps, right? The small spoonfuls in what you can digest, understanding your capacity, right? Understanding the situation that you're in, right? You might have 6 kids that need milk on their cereal, right? And a wife that needs a Chanel bag every once in a while. So you're not going to be leaving your job in this moment, but you can prepare yourself and at the same time apply yourself and just move into it slowly at your pace, understanding your capacity, because you might be just like me, right? That just needs to be able to do it in their own pace, knowing you're going to get there. Right? You have to believe that you can get there, because in the beginning I didn't quite believe that I could get there, but in that action and applying yourself and taking in the lessons and absorbing them, right? You get to understand it's never too late, right? You make that decision right now and get your butt into gear, right? And maybe you can't do it 100 miles an hour. Maybe you can't quit your job in the moment, but you can make that decision and start applying yourself in what you would love to do, right? Maybe you're not going to be in the NHL on the ice making those scores. But if you love hockey, right, there are lots of places that you can apply yourself in and just start moving in that direction. And if that's not going to be your work, you could make that into your hobby. Maybe you could be a coach for kids, right? There are lots of things that you can do in order to move into the direction that you know you should, that you would love to be at. I've done it myself. I'm that evidence that it can be done, right? I'm doing it at a pace that I'm comfortable at. I pick up the speed when I have to. Every once in a while, wrenches still get thrown into the engine, but I'm grateful that I've got to that point that I don't have to have those pivots anymore, right? That's not to say there won't be another one. There will be. But holy cow, I was making those pivots every few months my entire life. And like I said, it's been 6 years now. And I feel grounded. I feel well rested. I'm smiling. I'm emotionally, mentally, physically in there, right? Getting the job done. And I think it's absolutely amazing. I feel like I'm on track. I really do, right? I don't have any second guesses in the directions that I'm moving in. And yes, right? The scenery is going to look different. Change is still going to come into my life. But because I am focused now, because I know the directions where I'm supposed to be going, right? That those big wrenches aren't going to be throwing in those aspects of my life, that I can handle the small changes in my life. I consider these the small changes, right? If I have to move tomorrow, I'll find a way, right? I will find a way. But I tell you, there was a time in my life I would have thought that was the end of my life. I'd be like running around like a chicken with my head chopped off, nervous breakdowns, anxiety, bawling my eyes out, stressed to the tilt. And yet, even in this moment, and we never know until we're in the moment, right? Of course, there's that little scurrying around. But I work the best when I am busy, right? And that was something that came across my path as a lesson, right? And I wish I could apply myself and really make a list and say, I learned this from this person, I learned this from this person. The big ones that impacted my life 100%. I will never forget the gifts that were offered to me, right? That helped me move along in a way that I'm at that point now where I can be the example for somebody else, right? That they can bring about change in their own lives because they know change needs to happen. It has to happen, right? But because we're afraid of change, because we don't want to rock the boat, because that couch and the remote control is comfy, comfy, we stay in the life that we have in the moment. And we deal with the stress and the anxiety and the worry and the I hate my job and the how it rubs off in the relationships and how it rubs off in us because we're not doing what we love and so we're miserable in that. We drag that around, right? And we just rub it all over other people, not just ourselves, right? I love what I'm doing, you guys. I really do. I found my calling. It's not everybody's idea of a good time, but it's my idea of a good time. And like I said, yes, it started with a 360 and a 180, a few of them. right? Until I got comfortable, till I became a little bit more confident that I could do it. When I felt like I mattered and that my life mattered, right? And then I've just come to be a little bit more comfortable with the change, but grateful that I can initiate that change rather than the circumstances or life or catastrophes or that pot of craft dinner on the stove. Okay, you guys, that's what I've got for you tonight. That was a good one. I love pivot. This is a great word because it is change. And if you ask me, change is the most important word in the entire world, right? Especially in this day and age that we live in, every day and age, going back through history. That's our evolution is change. We have to be willing to change, but we have to change. We have to have that action, right? Of change. Just got to make that choice, right? Put a little steam behind it and see what miracles you can bring into your life. What support, right? Right? That's a good one too because when you know what direction you're going, you know who to ask for help, and because people recognize what direction you're going in, that help is offered, and that's an amazing thing. It really is. Okay, you guys, that's my good cheer, and we'll see you tomorrow.